right, Chumash, page 44 in the Chayenu, Shishi, the sixth Aliyah. Pasuk Lamed Aleph, Vayemer Hashem Elai, Moshe continues recounting. Hashem then said to me, I've already begun to give over Sichon, his land, before you. Hachel Rush, begin now to drive him out. So as to take over his country. I've already begun to give over. I've begun to give over before you. What happened at that point? So it says at that moment, before Moshe's recounting the last year in the desert, and before he defended the Jews against Sichon and Og, God said, I've already begun to give them over. But what do you mean? They haven't gone to war yet. So it's metaphysically, God forced the celestial representative angel of the Emori, because remember, every nation has an archangel of some sort, and God showed metaphysically how that archangel, or that source angel of the existence of this nation, is subdued under Moshe's feet, and then Moshe tread on his neck, which is a metaphor for their lucky star has fallen, something like that. Lamed Beis. Sichon, he and his entire people that came out to meet us in battle at Yatz. Sichon then came out. He did not send for Og to help him. This shows they have no need for each other's assistance. He did not send for Og to help him. This shows you they had no need for each other's assistance. So Sichon came by himself, even though they were kind of a tag team of defenders of the Canaanite kings. He said, I'll come by myself and beat up the Jews. Or he thought so. Hashem our God then gave him before us. We smote him, his sons, and his entire people. Lamed Gimel, Vesbanov, his sons. B'noi Ksiv, it's written as his son. It's written as in the singular, although it's pronounced in the plural form. Shahoyle ben Gibor Kamaisi. It's saying that he had, out of all, while he had many sons, as many of those kings back then had many wives, many kids, but he had one son who was also a giant like him, as strong and mighty as him. That's what it's intimating. Lamedalva, Milkud is called Arav Isahi. At that time, we captured all his cities. Menachem is called Yermisim. We devastated every inhabited city. Vanoshim Ataf, with the women and children. Lo Yisharnu Sarid, we left no survivors. Lamed Gimel Lamedalid. Misim Anoshim, this means people. Beviza Sichon Emar Bazadnu Lanu. Regarding what was plundered from Sichon, it says, Bazaznu Lanu, we plundered for ourselves. Sheisa Chavim Aleim Beizim Ishloi. So when we talk about the plundering of Sichon, Sheisa Chaviv Aleim Beizim Ishloi, it says everybody was happy to take, when they conquered them, they took the plunder. The Jews took the plunder of Sichon, nation. But when Og came to then try to fight them, second, they beat him, they walloped him, and they were already they basically didn't need money anymore. They had so much money from the first conquering, they didn't really care, and they just ripped it and threw away the animals and clothing, and they only took the silver and gold. So odd. Therefore, it says Bazoinu Lanu. It says we pillaged for ourselves, which is a play on words. Means it was. I was going to say soon bazainu, which is like we were like it was like it was scornful. It was like irrelevant. It wasn't such a big deal for us.
Bazaznu is what it says.
But I think later it's going to say bazainu. He's printing what it's going to say later. He's comparing now it says bazaznu, and later I think it's going to say bazainu by Og. Yeah, later on. So it's just saying now. But here it says the word bazaznu, which means they truly plundered and took whatever they could take, like a normal conquering. But in Og, it says bazoinu, which is in another 10 verses or so. It says we took it in a way of like scornful, because like we didn't need the money anymore. So we only took the gold and silver and left everything else. So it's explained in the Sifri and Vayeshev Yisrael Bashitim. Okay. Only the animals we plundered for ourselves. And the booty of the cities that we have captured. From our Orer, which is on the bank of the Arnon Brook, with the city that is in the valley, as far as Gilad we took, there was not a town that was too powerful for us. Hashem our God gave everything over before us. However, you did not go near the land. You did not go near the land of the children of Ammon, the Jews. Why? Kol Yad Nachal Yabok V'Ariyar, all the cities next to the Yabok Brook and the mountain cities. Everything else Hashem told us, command us not to conquer. Rashi Lam Zayin, Kol Yad Nachal Yabok, all the cities next to the Yabok Brook. Everything else that Hashem our God commanded us, told us not to conquer, we left alone. And we then turned and went up through the Bashan. So they just walloped Sichon. Now Og, the king of Bashan, came out towards us. He and his whole nation for war at Edrei. We then turned and went up, traveling along the entire northern side of Israel. Traveling along the northern side is called going up. Right? They went from the eastern bank of the Jordan River, and they're going up from the bottom up. Okay. No, I take it back. I'm sorry. They traveled along the northern side. So it sounds like they're going on the northern border. They're traveling east to west. But since it's towards the direction of Israel, it's like going up. Israel's very high level. Perek Gimel, chapter 3, Pasuk Aleph, verse 1. We then turned and went up through the Bashan. I said this. Base. Pasuk base. Verse 2. Hashem said to me at the time, saying, don't fear him. For in your hand I have given him and all his nation and his land, and you shall give him kasher sisla sichem elachameri. You shall do to him like you did to Sichon, the king of Amori, Ashayish becheshbon, who lived in Cheshbon. Do not fear him. But regarding Sichon, there was no need to say, do not fear him. So why by Og it said, don't fear him, but Sichon, then just go do it. It didn't say, don't fear him. Sichon wasn't scary. It was scary also. Rather, the answer is, of course, Moshe was not scared of anybody due to their size and strength. Moshe, by Og, though, was afraid. Why was he afraid? Not because of his strength, because Og had a merit. He said a mitzvah protects, right? We just said a mitzvah like is a certain like protective shield. Mm-hmm. Og did a mitzvah. What was his mitzvah? We said he helped Avram. If you remember, when Avraham um, when Lot was captured, it said the survivor of the Rephaim came to tell him. Who was the survivor? It was Og. So Og told Avram about his nephew, and that led Avram to go save his nephew. So it was a kindness that Og did. What's fascinating is, I can get to it here.
It's 450 years later, though, isn't it? I mean,
So either it's the same guy and he lived long, or it's a grandson, or yeah. What's interesting is we know in the commentaries say that Og only told Avram to go save Lot out of a malevolent, out of selfish reason.
Mhm.
He was hoping Avram would go to war, get killed, and he would marry Sarah. Og would get to marry Sarah as a widow. So he did a mitzvah with a really selfish intent, and it still was considered a very powerful, still a mitzvah.
Wow.
To the point Moshe was worried maybe he has some sort of protective shield in the merit of that non-altruistic yet helpful act.
Wow.
Okay. Gimel. Hashem our God also gave Og king of the Bashan and his entire people into our hands. They came, they saw, and we won. We came, we saw, we conquered. And we smote him until there were no survivors left of his people. At that time, we captured all his cities. There was no city that we did not seize from them. Shishim Ir Kol Chevel Argoiv, 60 cities, the entire royal region. Mamlechas Oig Babashan, the kingdom of Og in Bashan. Wow.
That's huge.
Yeah. That's why it was good land for Reuven
Why
and
does
Gad.
it use ear in the singular? I don't understand Shishim ear. Shouldn't it be Shishim
I don't know.
Irim?
I don't know Hebrew so well to.
Shishim here.
I'm not sure. I mean, I hear you. I hear you from my basic Hebrew grammar skills, but I'm assuming it works for the plural as well. Hey, call here you go. Arim. See here it says all these cities, plural. Arim. Bitzuris chema gevaya dlasayim riach. I think it's like a stylistic, poetic thing. You could say shishim ir, and it can mean it works in Hebrew. But it also is Arim, as it says now. There were cities fortified with a high wall, double gates. Gevayad Lasayim Vriach and bolts, Levad Ma'aria Prazi Har B'moed. This is besides many open cities. They conquered the fortified cities, and even besides, not to say the open cities they conquered. Hey, Ma'aria Prazim, the open cities, these are the Pruzais, spread out. I realize it.
60 fortified cities. That's all huge.
Well, I don't know if they were. Yeah, I guess right. Okay, the word prazim comes. I didn't realize this. Prazim, which means usually unfortified cities. Usually, unfortified cities are very. You want to make more villages, so you can't fortify everything. So you have some. When you have a very strong army, you're not afraid to make sprawling towns and cities without walls, because you're like, we can always garner our troops to come fend off invaders.
Oh, really?
So the word prazos, which means it's really referring to open cities without walls. It's also related to the fact that they're pruzos, they're spread out. They're very it's like you don't feel you have to guard it because you feel so strong.
Okay.
That's what it says in Zechariah, prazos teish Yerushalayim. Mashiach comes, Jerusalem shall be settled without a wall. We won't need walls because God will just protect us directly.
Oh, it's just there. Okay.
It's a sign of security.
I would have thought the opposite, but I can see the point. Okay.
You're so confident,
Right.
you don't need to have walls. We annihilated them just as we done to Sichon. Hachanim kol misim.
Some open.
We devastate every open inhabited city. Anoshim ataf, the women and children. Hachanim is continuous presence. We were devastated. Like then, we were devastating as we went along. Zayin, two more pages, 2.5 pages. This is Rashi reference. By Og, all the animals and booty, we pillaged for ourselves. They basically didn't hoard it. They just like took what they had and they whatever. The rest they didn't take. The rest they destroyed. Bazoinu as in we pillaged, not plundered. We pillaged. No. Bazoinu is Bezayin, not Zayinun. The nun is not part of the root. It's the Bez in Zayin. At the time, we took over the land from the two kings of the Amori who were on the other side of the Jordan. From the Arnon Brook, as far as the Mount Hermon. Miad means in the possession of. Test, Sidonim, Yikru Hermon Siryoin. Now, I just explained to you, says back then, that Sidonim, I guess some native people, they would call the Hermon Siryoin. And the Amori would call it Sneer, the snow mountain. Mount Hermon is where they ski in Israel. Test, Sidonim Yigul Hermon. We see that Sidonim called it Hermon, and elsewhere we see so we see it's called Hermon. So this so there's Hermon, Sirion, Sneer, and how much of the fourth name is. But he says, why are there 4 names? Why you have to write them all? Like, why do you need 4 names? Like, who cares? Right? Do you care like the dialects that every city's called? Because to tell you this, to tell you the praise of the quality of the land of Israel, that 4 kings, this mountain bordered 4 countries. So every single one, like, was so proud of having part of the mountain in their border, they gave it its own name. They wanted, like, this is our, special mountain. This is our special mountain, and so on. They all wanted their name. It was a sign of like pride. Okay. Sneer. Hushal b'shen Ashkenaz b'shen Canaan. It says snow. In German, Schnee. Interesting. So here you see that some early Germanic language and the Canaanite language both have the term of Schneer. Schneer, which is like Schnee, which is like snow. I mean, because a lot of times Hebrew words, the Holy Tongue elements of it are found in other languages and say, oh, look, that's like they got that word from the early Holy Tongue, That's why. Okay. Yud. We took over the cities of the plain, the entire Gilad, the entire Bashan, as far as Salcha and Edrei. Ori Mamlechas Bashan, the cities of Og, king of Bashan. Yud Aleph. Kirak Og Melech Bashan Nisham Yesarafim. Because only Og was a king, Og king of Bashan. He was the last remaining, the remnant of the rest of the Rephaim giants. His bed was actually an iron bed. He was so strong, had to hold a heavy guy. Is it not to be seen? It's so weird. It's almost like a infomercial. Like, is it not to be seen in Rabbas Pnei Amon? You want to see this museum piece? It's in Rabbas Pnei Amon. Atesha Amos Arka. This bed of Og was 9 cubits long, which is like 14 feet or something.
9 times 2 is 18.
Yeah, but it's.
I know, 1.5.
This is a Chabad show. We use the Chabad measurements. Using the cubits of the man Og. So actually, it's going to be more than that. You'll see how. So first of all, it says in Rashi, he was the survivor of the Rephaim because years earlier, Amraphel and the four kings, when they beat up the Rephaim, they killed his ancestor, his tribe, these giants, and he was the only survivor. But Amas Ish, it says actually.
Wouldn't we, shouldn't we be
So
fine?
according to Rashi, Og was a huge giant. Now, huge, 14 feet tall is pretty big, but I wouldn't call it like giant. But a cubit, you know what the word for cubit is? Amma, right? Right, Alan?
Yeah,
You know what Amma means? Literally, arm, forearm.
from the nose to the fingers.
It says it in. It says the princess Bisya Batya. She stretched out Amasa, means her arm. It refers to the forearm, from the elbow to the middle finger. So when we say a cubit, that's why there's arguments of how big is a cubit in Jewish law, but it's roughly between 1.5 feet to 2 feet. That's the average forearm of a person in that range. But here it says they used the cubits of Og himself, which is much bigger than a regular person, the average person. So he was 9 jumbo cubits, which is why it's going to say in Yud Beis, when we talked about Og trying to kill the Jews, he picked up a mountain, it says, and was going to throw it on them.
Whoa.
So he was huge, according to Rashi, according to the Medrash. Yud Beis, at that time he took possession of this land, from Ar Orer, which is by the Arnon Brook, half of the Gilad mountain region, the Arv and its cities, and the Sati, L'Ruveni, V'Lagad. I gave it to Reuven and Gad, the Reubenites and the Gadites. Sarah says, in this land mentioned above, which he says from Nach Arnon and the Har Chamon, we took possession at the time from Ar Orer, which is by the brook, on the Sad L'Ruveni Lagadi. With regard to the full inheritance, it reached further, went to Mount Hermon. I mean, this last part of the verse is going that from Ar Orer till and half of Mount Gilad, that went through Reuven and Gad. But the first part is I took that whole land, which is way more than that, what they gave to Gad and Reuven. The rest of the Gilad region, all the Bashan region, the kingdom of Og, the Sati, Lachatzi, Menashe gave to half of the tribe of Menashe. Kol Chevel Argoiv Chal Bashan, all the royal region of the entire Bashan. Hahu Yikar Eretz Rephaim, the land that is called the land of the Rephaim. Now we look in your Gimel, Rashi, that land is called the land of the Rephaim. That is the one I gave to Avram. In last verse, Yud Aleph, Yair ben Menashe lakachas kol Chevel Argoiv. Yair the son of Menashe took over the entire royal region as far as the border of the Geshuri and the Machasi, Geshuri and Machasi. And he called Bashan the Yair villages after his name, until this very day. That ends the Chumash. We'll now do